Hey everyone, I'm Prez. Welcome back to Cabrillo. This is episode 11 now, I think. We're moving really fast here, but last episode we built this campus, UC Cabrillo, really far away from downtown. And it's going to be part of a self-sufficient college town called Morgan. We're going to be building that in this episode and kind of giving some context to UC Cabrillo. Starting off here in our Inspiration Station segment, we have Telegraph Avenue. I showed you this in the last episode, but I feel like it's worth showing you again. It's a historic and lively avenue in Berkeley, where I go to school and where this is based off of. And Telegraph, it's really hard to overstate how cool Telegraph Avenue is. It's got multiple record stores, it's got amazing restaurants, it's got tons of people walking around and tons of historic buildings and events. It's insane. We're also going to build a train station, and we're going to try to make it as different from Berkeley Amtrak as possible, because Berkeley Amtrak is, it's been made a mess by this stupid overpass. You're not actually allowed to walk over the overpass either. You have to walk a couple blocks over to a pedestrian overpass. It's a mess. We're also going to build a shoreline that's got a rail line on it as well, and kind of trails interspersed that we'll build in a future episode. But yeah, those are the kind of elements of what we're building today. We're also going to expand the road infrastructure in this area, although we won't be building too much with that in this episode, but we will return to it in the future for some really interesting builds and historical discussions. So the line here, the rail line, I'm kind of imagining is an old kind of logging rail line that might have crossed the river a little further up, and I haven't really decided yet whether I'm going to actually have it cross the river. I might build like a kind of abandoned truss bridge of some sort. That would be kind of cool, just abandoned there. We'll figure that out, but I definitely want a trail kind of on the opposite side of the river, kind of connecting it up here. But I guess Amtrak might own this line now. I'm definitely not going to make it expand up into the mountains. I'm just imagining that the mountains are too inhospitable to rail, that they get a lot steeper than they are in this area. But yeah, Amtrak might own this segment now, although they don't own the rest of the rail that you see on the map. It's just this segment. I'm imagining the rest is probably owned by BNSF, and maybe Union Pacific has rights to some of it. So we're expanding the road layout around here. There is also a lot of expansion that we do in this episode that you can kind of consider preliminary. The only final stuff that you'll see here is just this avenue here, which I don't really have a name for the avenue. It's really just 2 blocks, but and there's this concept called the urban triage, which I don't exactly know where it originated. I'm assuming it was from the New Urbanists, but I most recently read it in Walkable City by Jeff Speck. But it's this concept that you should have 3 types of roads in a city, and it's kind of a different way of looking at road hierarchy. First, you have the A streets, right? The A streets are your walkability centers, like right here in Northside, this street that's kind of unnamed, that goes down to the waterfront. That's just 2 blocks. And nonetheless, it's such an important and historic place in the city with so much life that it's an A street. You put tons of resources into making this street great. And then you have B streets that are streets that might connect to the A streets as arteries, right? And they funnel pedestrians to the A streets, and maybe themselves are kind of walkable. Then you have C streets, and obviously this is really simplified, but C streets might be just suburban streets that are not walkable at all. You really shouldn't put resources into trying to make them walkable. They're just going to be car-centric. And I don't know, I kind of like that reframing of the road hierarchy as a in kind of a walkable or walkability sense. Once again, not exactly sure where that originated, but if you want to I just finished reading Jeff Speck's Walkable City. I'd highly recommend it to anybody who wants kind of a really comprehensive overview of what makes a city great, what makes a city walkable. I don't agree with absolutely everything said, but I think it's still it's the best thing I've read in terms of summarizing exactly what what you can do to make cities walkable. Beyond the murals that we'll be placing, you might notice that I place tons of pride flags everywhere, which, one, it's because it's Pride Month in a couple days when I'm uploading this, and 2, because Morgan here, I'm just imagining, is a city that's got a really, really rich history of LGBT activism. And I'm imagining the students here have used art throughout history to advocate for themselves, for their community, and it's basically the Castro of Cabrillo. It's not in Cabrillo itself, it's a separate town, but this is where a lot of the most important politics and political events in Cabrillo have happened, and especially important here is the gay rights movement. Even though UC Cabrillo it's sort of one of the smaller UC campuses, it's still got a really rich history because it's one of the older campuses. And as I mentioned in the last episode, students have really expressed that throughout history with public art. They've expressed their political will by painting murals all over the campus. There's actually a story proposed in the comments of the last episode where, an old professor from another university came to the campus and got very outraged and called students vandals, and the name kind of stuck. Basically, it's a really rebellious campus. It was really a center of culture in the 1960s, and also has led the way for trans rights and the Black Lives Matter movement in recent history. So it continues its traditions, just like UC Berkeley had, but its heyday was definitely in the 1960s. Definitely let me know in the comments what you imagine might be going on now, or what might have gone on in the past at UC Cabrillo in terms of student life and community activism. I'm imagining lots of the people who live here, just like in Berkeley, are also kind of very progressive and historically have been very progressive and have been behind the students. The students have driven the community, but also the community has helped the students, had the students' backs throughout history whenever they've taken up a political cause like public art. And you'll notice as we continue that that the north side of campus, that the street that we built in the beginning, it's got murals there. It's not just on campus; it's within the community itself as well. That there's public art. So we're placing bike racks all around campus. This is just an asset of filled up bike racks that I found in the workshop that's got bike racks and then Ronix bicycles on it, which is really cool, and those have been working pretty well for me. I'm going to go back and place tons more of those in various places throughout the city in the future. I also want to build a bike share system, and there are assets for that, which I've already got downloaded. So you might actually see people going around on bike share bikes, but there's no actual system yet. But I'd love to actually make a system map of where stations are, to place bikes, or even we could have a dockless system. I don't know, maybe we could have a vote on that in the future, kind of reviewing the benefits and the drawbacks of having a dockless bike share system. And that could be a vote that we take on in the future when we're planning the bike share system. That's probably what I'll end up doing. Right now, we're expanding the road layout here because I was just having trouble. We haven't finished the town of Morgan. We're going to go back to that and work on it a little bit more the end of the episode. But right now, I'm just struggling with the lack of context for the campus, and we're not going to build this area out here. I just wanted to kind of imagine where the main arterials might be, and what these neighborhoods might look like, at least in terms of their road layout, and also extend the highway in here. And I know it would be more realistic to build this whole community and then bulldoze the highway over it, but very limited time working here in City Skylines, and I just want to get stuff built, and we'll still be able to visualize what might have been below this highway, and that's going to be a whole future episode that I'm kind of envisioning at this point. But we're connecting it up to the highway tunnel that goes under this urban park. So the tunnel the highway doesn't disrupt the park and the nature there, but it does definitely disrupt the neighborhood on the other side, which once again we'll explore in a future episode. I'm also bringing the highway across the river, just on the other side of the river from Morgan, and it's going to go up into the hills here, and we'll work on that in a little bit. But they're going to be some pretty extensive suburbs on the other side of that river in what used to maybe be wine country right next to the redwoods. I used this weird double bridge asset. I'm imagining that maybe when the city built the highway, they also they built a kind of parallel bridge for a local road that might go across the river there. But it's also got a bike path next to it. You'll see that in just a moment. It's just kind of a 4-lane road with a bike path crossing the river parallel to the highway. And yeah, we'll build this whole area out in a future episode. I just wanted to get this infrastructure down. So one, we can get cars coming into Morgan, but also just so we can get an idea for, maybe start thinking about what might have been here in the past, and what still is here. I don't include all the footage for this. It is truly a pain to build interchanges that are this steep, because the highway is kind of elevated, but it doesn't get down to the 12-meter height for a little while, and it's really steep here, and nothing's perfectly realistic, but I nonetheless managed to work with these really steep and narrow areas, and builds what I think looks like what might have been rammed in here in the 60s. So we're beginning work here on the highway kind of across the river from Morgan. This highway is the Highway 101. In California, it kind of parallels the coast further inlands for a good portion of its length, and that's kind of what it's going to do here. It's going to go inland but still go north-south, if that makes sense. So it doesn't go right along the shoreline, but it's still a north-south highway. Also, I wanted to mention, I really do appreciate all the build suggestions that you folks have given me in the last couple episodes. When I see something I really want to go with in the future, I save it. I've got a whole database of stuff I want to build in Cabrillo. So if you have any suggestions of your own, let me know here, or maybe on Discord, or wherever you want to let me know. The YouTube comments are a great place to do so, because people can upvote what they'd like to see, and I can see that as well. So upvote comments to second suggestions, but keep the comments coming with suggestions, because we're moving pretty quickly here, and always having build suggestions is great. And as I mentioned in the last episode, those suggestions can also refer to themes that you want me to cover, because my videos kind of center around those a lot. So it's not even just build a streetcar suburb, it's talk about walkability and density and how they relate. Or anyway, we are going down to ground level now. We're gonna take a look at Morgan. This is once again the north side of campus, and it opens up into campus with this really human scaled gate, which is kind of ornamental at this point. But look at how beautiful this street is. It's not even like there's that much going on here in terms of crazy architecture or anything. It's just nice little historic buildings combined with some modern buildings. And with the Morgan Amtrak station, I think I've achieved my goal of straying as far away from Berkeley Station as possible. It's really accessible, nice and quaint, but still really accessible from the town of Morgan. And it's not anything crazy, but you could just walk there. If you need to park, you could park a couple blocks away at a public garage. But it's right there, right next to downtown, and instead of being inaccessible under an underpass like Berkeley Station is. Another interesting thing about Morgan is it's really preserved its historic buildings. Like even this one house surrounded by commercial buildings has been preserved. I'm imagining maybe an important person lived there at one point. But yeah, there's just such a diversity of ages of these buildings and uses here. There's some construction you can see in the background. Not all of this is done. We'll come back here. But the Amtrak train is running here, and this is the end of the line. It doesn't go any further. It's just this and then Union Station and Cabrillo, and then maybe we'll have one more stop. But yeah, this is what Morgan looks like around UC Cabrillo, and also this is what the roads look like that we planned out earlier on with the highway. I'm not going to show you too much of that because we're not actually ready to build that area yet, but we've also got that kind of road going through the mountain there, that highway 101. Quick shout out to some patrons before we go: Anthony Perez, Cedric Atkinson, David, Matthew Zaime, and Riley Callahan. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel over on Patreon. Lots of perks over there if you're interested, or becoming a YouTube member, both in the description. You could also just follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, get involved in the comments section. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next episode of Cabrillo.